Blockchain. It may sound like an auto part or a bad heavy metal band, but no. Well, we're trying to figure that out.
What is your working definition of blockchain?
Cryptocurrency, lots of people have no idea what it is.
Blockchain is a system of transactions, which many people believe is where money and finance are headed.
We need to enable instant payments and transactions.
Blockchain has developed a bit of a bad rap, but now activists are using it as a tool for good, like with the cash bail crisis.
So anytime someone downloads this app or program, it is an act of political resistance.
Artists and designers also think it's a game changer.
It's starting to look more like a different kind of internet that maybe the internet was originally designed to be.
These two use blockchain to get improvements made to this Brooklyn park.
And then eventually we raise enough money through that process and we use that cryptocurrency to fund this installation.
But this new frontier can definitely be a weird place.
Honestly, I have all these Ugandans and Zimbabweans calling me the crypto queen of Africa, and I'm like, no, no, no.
That's what we're about this week, shedding a little light on a gray area of our future. Beautiful Bushwick summer morning. Lines snaking down the block, passes being scanned by the hundreds. You may think we've stumbled upon the hottest indie music fest you never heard of, but we're looking for answers.
All right, look alive. Just for the unindoctrinated, I wanted to know, what's your working definition of blockchain?
It's a new model of governance which has never been tried before.
What is your working definition of blockchain, as it were?
Blockchain is a ledger that I hope will be instrumental in shifting so many things on the planet, including consciousness.
So how do you explain cryptocurrency to your grandma?
It's money.
So a ledger, prompting a whole new world order for governance, consciousness, and it's also money? Let me ponder that for a sec while you watch this explainer. In the old days, bookkeepers kept ledgers, books with a grid of transactions. These ledgers could be kept for anything: financial statements, records of property ownership, even for tracking where your fish came from. And every time you buy or sell something, a computer is recording that transaction in a ledger. Whenever we use a service like eBay or Amazon, that service keeps a ledger of every transaction. If you want to find out who owns a piece of land, you probably need to hire a lawyer just to find the right ledger for that transaction is kept. But what about the food we eat? Say a piece of fish in a bite of sushi. Is anyone keeping a record of where that fish is from? And who has access to those records? Enter the blockchain. It's just like a privately held ledger, except that anyone has access to it. Like a giant public database in the cloud. All the entries are out there in the open for everyone to see. The most famous user of blockchain technology is Bitcoin, an electronic currency with a completely public ledger. Let's say I have 10 Bitcoins and I want to give 5 to my aunt in Ecuador. Usually, when you send money to the folks back home, you have to go through a bank. One bank talks to another bank, they compare ledgers, make adjustments to our accounts, and in 3 to 5 business days, my aunt gets access to her money. But with blockchain, the ledger is out in the open. I take 5 Bitcoin away from my balance and add 5 coins to my aunt's, and almost instantly, and without a fee, the request goes to thousands of computers that have a copy of the same ledger. Because everyone has access to the ledger, it's almost impossible to scam, because you need to scam everyone at once. Once the transaction is verified, a new line is added to the ledger, a block gets added to the chain, hence the term blockchain. But blockchain isn't just for moving money around. We can track anything using a public ledger. Right now, we can track a gem from the mine to seller to a buyer to put an end to conflict diamonds. We could use the technology to publicly track voting to make sure that there isn't interference. Here in Brooklyn, blockchain has been used to distribute energy generated by solar panels to neighbors in Park Slope. No Con Ed required. But this all raises some questions for how we'll do business in the future. What happens when we don't need a middleman? Now that you know what blockchain is all about, you can probably stop watching this. Or you could go inside the foremost cryptocurrency event in the nation with us. It's the Ethereum Summit, where crypto theory meets real-world practice. And when I say world, I'm talking global scale.
So one of the biggest sort of criticisms is that people come to something like this and they basically say it bakes no bread. There's all these like high-minded ideals, but the picture that we see most often is the keyboard millionaire who's making all this money out of his Bitcoin. So how does that affect what you do in the real world?
So we get really frustrated. So we're in Africa on the ground with consumers, been living there for, like I said, 5 years. Everyone, there's a lot of hype right around crypto, the new token sales, all these things, but nobody's building. Nobody's actually has anything. And we get frustrated because we're out there and we actually have consumers adopting this currency. We have users, we understand their problems, we've been working with them for years. So I'm excited to present today because we can finally tell the world, like, look at what we've been doing. Like, we're honestly one of the only cryptocurrencies that's being used as a store of value.
What we need is a new financial system designed explicitly for African consumers. We need zero fees. We need to enable instant payments and transactions. We need a borderless solution. And we need to enable micropayments. Meet Dala.
So what do you think it's going to take for America to get the message while the rest of the emerging world is eating our lunch in terms of cryptocurrency? We're stuck on our gold standard FDIC stuff.
Yeah, I think that, you know, today I really want people to see that crypto is going to, and it already has begun to start a financial revolution in Africa. And the exchanges, the different types of blockchains, they need to start looking at Africa and to the emerging markets to see the opportunities. A lot of people, especially in the US, they don't, when you say Africa, their eyes go blank. They don't understand, they don't know these consumers, they don't know the problems. Our goal is to actually show who these people are, show the consumers, show the problems. You know, an Uber driver in South Africa who's from Zimbabwe needs to send money back home, but he has to give a bag of cash to a bus driver just to get money back home. Like, just putting a face on the story so people can see that this is a global world. We're all the same people. We all have problems, but the real opportunity is in emerging markets. Going up today, the whole thing is, look at what we've done. It's taken us years, but we've done this, and we have a true adoption. Most cryptocurrencies can't actually say that today. People are just busy building, but they're never trying to get it out in the hands of the consumers, and that's what we've done. So I think that's what's, you need a little mic drop action and get people.
So how secure are you with being the African queen of cryptocurrency?
That's what I'm already getting to on Twitter.
Right here, boom.
Honestly, I have all these Ugandans and Zimbabweans calling me the crypto queen of Africa, and I'm like, no. Like, we want to build the tools for people, hand it over to the consumer. Like, this is them. This is about putting power back in the hands of the consumer. So we just create the tools, let them run with it.
While the crypto queen of Africa tries to duck that title, while spreading the gospel of crypto across the continent, JB brought personal frustration, technological know-how, and a passion for radical causes to her partners, and helped create a blockchain project that unlocks cell blocks with this little device.
So your computer is working while you're working, and the money that it mines goes to help people mount their bail.
Right, to get them out of detention. Often people are held simply for being poor because they can't pay the bail.
So who came up with this concept, and why isn't everyone doing it?
Yeah, so I'm part of a tech collective, tech art, called Dark Inquiry. We make rhetorical software. Grace and Earl brought the concept of crowdfunding for radical causes with crypto.
Yeah.
And then I had been looking at bail funds, revolving bail funds for a while. Like I've had some pretty bad experiences where like disabled members of my family were held for the police for like no reason, and was like really traumatized by that and have been looking into it. So when he was talking about like using crypto this way, it made a lot of sense to use it because of the nature of revolving funds, because $3 to $5 goes a long way if you get like 96 to 98% of the money back each time.
Right.
And like I live in Brooklyn, and I don't want people held in my area in pretrial detention like this. How do I like say something, do something? So like the easiest thing you can do is download this, have it run in the background, and be donating money.
A USB you plug right into your computer. And for less than the price of a slice, we're talking $1 or $2 a month, your computer will become a cog in the mining machine, raising funds that people like Elena Weissman from the Bronx Freedom Fund put to work on behalf of New Yorkers who would otherwise be in jail without a bail.
Cryptocurrency, lots of people have no idea what it is. So what's your working definition of cryptocurrency?
My impression of it is that it is some sort of mysterious concept to which we assign value and people can mine through the computer, like the gold rush, but on your computer. And the way that we have a relationship with cryptocurrency is through a program called Bail Block, which was created by the New Inquiry. And it's a program that people can run in the background when they're on their computers that mines cryptocurrency, converts it to dollars, and gives the dollars as a donation to the Bronx Freedom Fund, which we then use to pay bail for people who would otherwise be incarcerated for their poverty.
So people who can't define cryptocurrency, who might not even have an internet connection or Wi-Fi at their home, can benefit from the fact that these little gnomes are mining away and converting that into real money to help get people out of jail.
Completely, yeah, and I think beyond that also, anytime someone downloads this app or program, it is an act of political resistance, and it's saying to the system, this is not what I want, this does not speak for me, and it is not the reality that I want for the world that I live in.
So can you give me a crash course in the cash bail process and why you think it needs to be reformed?
Sure. So bail was never intended as punishment. It's just supposed to be a way to give people some skin in the game in a form of collateral. So the idea is you front the money, let's say it's $500, so you or your parents or someone else who is connected to you,
they know you'll show up.
Exactly. And it's a promise to the court that you will show up because you want to get the $500 back. Right. But for the 8 in 10 New Yorkers who cannot afford the bail that's set on them, it certainly does serve as an instrument for punishment instead of one for liberty as it was intended. So those people are forced into this impossible dilemma. I don't even want to call it a choice, where they can either plead guilty, get their case over with, and go home and resume their lives, or they can maintain their innocence and their constitutional right to trial, but they'll be going to Rikers Island or to the boat or to some other jail to await trial pretty much indefinitely because we have such a backlogged court system.
So who are these people that are the ones who are predominantly caught in the system? If you had to think of someone who's been on the wrong side of the cash bail crisis, what do they look like?
This really could happen to anyone, but I will say in New York City, a place where police presence is so much more heightened in low-income communities of color, it is almost exclusively people of color. If you go and sit in criminal arraignments in any one of the boroughs, you'll see that reality. And you know, add that to the fact that most people in New York who are living in poverty are people of color, that the ones who cannot afford their bail are the ones who get locked up. So, you know, 3/4 of the people who are at Rikers Island or at the boat are people of color. Almost 100% of them are living at or below the poverty line. Over half of women who are incarcerated pre-trial care for minor children at home. This is something that affects the most vulnerable and marginalized populations in New York City.
How does something like this maybe change the landscape of what it is that you're able to do for your clients and people who come through?
Yeah, the most powerful component of it is that we're now tapping into a whole new network of advocates who knew probably very little or nothing about the world of the cash bail crisis and of efforts to reform that system. And so I think to be able to connect with people who are in the tech world as advocates and also as donors is a really powerful way to create informed citizenry.
Cryptocurrency is helping people post cash bail right now. But there are also other real-world applications for the difficult-to-define process.
So from the main stage today, I've seen speakers say that crypto is the key to solving everything from childhood obesity to malaria in third world countries. Very high-minded ideals, but you've brought it right down to earth.
Yes, right on earth, literally, to a park in Brooklyn.
Yeah, Bond King Park, right in our backyard,
yes,
is the beneficiary of cryptocurrency.
Right. So it's the first park to accept cryptocurrency as resources to raise civic funds and implement park development projects.
So fully 90%, I'll go out on a limb and say 90% of the residents in Bed-Stuy may not have ever had a token or even can tell you what cryptocurrency is.
Exactly.
But they're benefiting from it.
Yes.
How?
They're sitting on a bench and looking at the planters that are funded by cryptocurrency. 100%, no institutions involved, no government funding, 100% cryptocurrency.
No government involvement, no crowdfunding, please, just pure blockchain to benches for a Bed-Stuy park. We went to Bushwick to meet the sorcerers behind this magic trick.
So here at Sandbox, you guys are not data miners. You don't create entire networks. So what is it that you guys do when it comes to applications for cryptocurrency?
We are artists. We're designers. We're actually architects by trade. Sandbox is looking at the crypto world through the lens of creativity and trying to establish and discover what benefits there are within the world of art and design in the blockchain space.
So when you say the crypto community, what does that look like? Does it have a look? Is it something that exists IRL, or is it a network of computers with people typing away in their basement?
Unfortunately, it's got this negative stigma of in real life looking like a Lamborghini. A lot of people have seen that over the last year, but we're trying to push well past that. And
what's wrong with Lamborghinis?
Well, Lamborghinis are fine, but we live in New York. You know, where are you going to put a Lamborghini? But it's starting to look more global. It's starting to look more like a different kind of internet that maybe the internet was originally designed to be, a much more democratized and open framework that people can collaborate on, can build on. All of this stuff is open source inherently. So it allows people to kind of come together in a way that doesn't have a bias towards what country you're from or what your even educational background is. It's purely about kind of collaboration and making things.
Right now in the crypto space, there are lots of tools available. Mining and using mining rigs, GPUs, CPUs, that kind of stuff is one part of it. But we're working with a lot of cryptocurrencies where you could earn it by doing certain things. In our case, creating content, design work, helping the cryptocurrency community get more engagement and public presence. That's a big space that we saw from the beginning, and we knew that if we started to create projects and products out of the technology, whether it's public parks or books or magazine articles, we could start to move past the tech nitty-gritty of the new space and more into what we can do with it. It's really people creating new industries and new businesses in different ways. So instead of a typical social media company with a Mark Zuckerberg at the top, we have a distributed network where we are all rewarded for all of our tweets and all of our Instagram pictures.
Well, the internet is amazing. I'm a fan of the internet, but it can lead to some very dark places. I'm wondering what you see as sort of a dark side or something that we might be cautious about in dealing with that leap that's going to happen toward the blockchain.
It's a debate that Michael and I talk about a lot. A lot of the kind of stigma that blockchain has about being a dark web sort of marketplace is actually not so true anymore. It's really creating a transparent infrastructure that, especially for media, especially for social media, you can keep track of information as it propagates through the web. And that's creating kind of an effect where you can actually learn a lot more about where an information or where a story starts, how it gets shared, and it opens up a lot of the silo effects that we've seen with Facebook, where people are kind of typically staying within their lane, within their own crowd of friends, coworkers, and family. It's the bubble. Yeah. And so from our perspective, we saw a lot of flaws with the current social media kind of community where they're just bubbles. Yeah. And what blockchain is doing is at least opening up a dialogue or an infrastructure for a dialogue that is a lot more fair and gives an opportunity to both sides to basically have a real conversation.
So from each of you respectively, if your parents had to describe what it is that you do, what would they tell me that your job is?
I bet our parents would have all sorts of explanations. My parents would probably say that Kirk and Michael and Sandbox are trying to create a community that empowers creative people. My parents are both, writers and they're authors. They know the disenfranchisement of that profession and how difficult it is to get your word out there and to also get rewarded for that work.
When you look at the typical models of art, of architecture, of music, there's so much information and there's so much prototyping, so much value, so much entertainment that historically, because we just haven't had the tools, we can't capture that value. But blockchain is allowing us to create much more incremental and nuanced ways of valuing that kind of work.
It's like getting paid to breathe.
If breathing is tweeting
right.
and Instagram is selfies,
well,
that's the social currency.
Today, yeah, exactly.
We live in a world already of points, of rewards, of all of these different things, but they're all kind of siphoned off into separate companies that are third parties, that are making a massive amount of money from that whole premise. Steam Park was about visualizing all of this kind of energy that we were feeling within the crypto world and making it physical as a kind of really empowering artifact of what that crypto world could do. And that was our first test into that.
Well, do you want to make it real for me? We can go over
We would love to. Let's go over. Let's check it out.
The Sandbox team managed to raise $10,000 through content publishing using Steam blockchain, and Steam It Inc. kicked in another 10 as a project grant, meaning online tweets, posts, and mentions became currency for IRL infrastructure.
We're here in Von King Park, and Michael S. Lee, Kirk N. Finkel, this is you two.
Yes, it is.
This is the real-life manifestation of something that started on a computer. So how do you bring crypto into a park in Bed-Stuy?
The blockchain basically allows us to monetize every aspect of content that we create. So we thought, why not situate it in an actual park in New York City? Let's test it out with a community that is in need of new development. For 2 months, basically, we talked about every aspect of the park, the history of it, the community, the way it is now, our designs for the park, and then eventually we raised enough money through that process, and we used that cryptocurrency to fund this installation.
So Kirk, someone fabricated these custom. You have a series of planters all over this already existing park. So do you go into Home Depot and say, hey, I got some blockchain, can I have some plywood to help make this?
Unfortunately, you can't do that now. Maybe one day you could go in and say, I have, X cryptocurrency, will you take it? But there are a lot of ways that you can spend your cryptocurrency. There are marketplaces where you trade it just as you could with stock for different stocks or back to regular money. We actually used a card that connects to our cryptocurrency account. So we exchanged Steam, we mined Steam, changed it to Bitcoin, and then bought materials with it.
So what does it mean to you to have this right in the community as a real tangible thing that is sort of the realization of the work you do every day?
It's exciting to us. It's exciting to us as designers and artists that you can create something simply by extracting the value of a story. It's a testament to the power of this new technology and allows communities that might not otherwise have the grant funding to pay for new benches or typical kind of philanthropic infrastructure that a Central Park or Bryant Park would have, Herbert von King Park and other parks like it can tap into this new revenue avenue, this new resource that allows you to both connect with a new community, a new network, but also actually fund real things.
So what about folks who say crypto bakes no bread? It's all made up. It's a bunch of people just playing on the internet. Right. Do you think this would shut them up if we brought them here?
I would hope so. We need more precedents. We need more physical examples of how this affects our neighborhoods and the places around us and people.
We built this project just between the two of us. Imagine we got the millions in New York to dedicate to improving the subway system in New York City or the housing crisis. There's so many aspects of New York that could be improved, but it's hard to do that from the top down. Imagine if the people who use it every day could help generate that new value.
So finish the statement for me. Crypto for the public good is?
Crypto for the public good is strengthening communities. I think what people underestimate about the blockchain world is it's actually creating invisible networks. It's actually impacting physical, real communities, and it's generating new ones that could never have otherwise existed. So this is about the empowerment of real communities designed from the bottom up for the internet age. And that's what we think it's doing, and that's what we're trying to set an example with here.
We've offered up explainers, expert insights, and real-world applications of the blockchain at work. And even if you still don't quite understand it, you can be sure the blockchain is changing the way we live. By now, I'm really starting to get into this blockchain thing. The ledgers, the mining, and the coins. But what does it take to go from an idea to a bona fide blockchain billionaire with a social conscience?
I think for us, we really try to empower good projects within the blockchain ecosystem to survive, right? We're trying to build the next decentralized sort of Internet 3.0, and we work with a lot of different projects across a lot of different verticals, and we try to help them succeed.
I mean, I think that anything that the internet impacted or anything that is predicated on connectivity, I think has an opportunity to be improved through blockchain and crypto economics. It just takes will and it takes the community.
I think what people want to do is, in their small ecosystem, want to make a change. Not everybody will change the world. Not everybody will make a lot of money. But the idea that we have a form of technology that can inspire people to actually have that goal, I think that's inspirational itself.